we have saved the best for last. This is the global pea outlook, which will also include comments on black Matpe, pigeon peas, mung beans, and YellowDun peas, as well as yellows and greens. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce Mr. Vijay Iyengar, the founder and managing director of Agrocorp International Private Limited in Singapore. Sir.
I understand that our session time has been curtailed to 45 minutes, so we're going to start without much ado. We have a panel of experienced industry practitioners here, and we'll start off with a presentation by Vinay Soni of Foretell Business Solutions.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to Cecil's giving us the opportunity. As we are running short of time, I will not take much time to introduce or talk about something other than the dry peas. As you can see that the global dry pea production scenario, we have seen on an average the dry pea production in the world is somewhere around 10.5 million tons to 10.58 million tons. We have seen since the year 2000 to 2014, the production has not been the growth in the production is not much, but it has been always stagnant and kind of stable in all the scenarios. In 2000 to 2014, the average production was somewhere around 10.4 million tons. In the 2005 to 2014 scenario, it was 10.36 million tons. And 2009 to 2014, it is 10.5 million tons. So we can see that production is almost stagnant in all the years. Somewhere if you take a see about that production, we can see Canada is one of the largest producer of dry pea. We all know 26.9% share in the production, followed by Russia, 12.2% of share in the production, followed by China. And majority of the countries you can all see that it is located in the temperate zone. So the advantage of being these producers are their yield is far better than the countries or producers located in the subtropical areas like China and India. Canada, of course, it is driving the crop. It has almost around production is the highest in the world, and they have I have taken 2001 to 2013 production year CAGR. It has the highest production CAGR of almost around 5%. China, France is the only country which has seen that CAGR is negative side, and this is only because of it is in France that crop is not been much beneficial. Though France is a country where the average yield is highest among other dry pea producing countries. Quick review about the export. We all must be knowing about the export. That I would like to just say that there has been a cyclical trend in the export. Which has been grown up very fast, especially when we see from the years 2001 to 2008. There has been a slightly a shift in the export. The export has really gone up. I think this is the year when that world economic growth was the highest, and there is a positive trend in the economy. So this has driven the export to a highest level. And the world production export share, when you talk about, there is not much has been changed in the last 11 years. Canada, during the 2001 to 2008 period, they are occupying around 52% in the 52% share in the total export. While when you talk about the last 3 year scenario, 2009 to 2013, their share has gone up to the 57%. France, of course, from the 15%, it has gone down to 6%. Others remain 12%. Major gain has been no other country has got a major gain. In both the two periods, you talk about the Australia, USA, Russia, and Ukraine. They mostly have a similar kind of share in the export. Major exporter countries of dry pea, Canada occupying 54%, and their export CAGR is 7% annually. France is the second largest exporter of dry pea, occupying 11% share in the total export of dry pea. They are the second largest, but their CAGR is quite low, quite down. It is -9%. USA, again, that third largest exporter of dry pea in the world. 9% they have a share in the total export, and their CAGR is 14% annually. They are most positive. Russian Federation, again, Russian, Ukraine, and Australia, they almost occupy that fourth place, and Russia has a good CAGR, though it is a 23%, but their export volume is pretty low. Import, when you talk about, again, we have seen that India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, basically the Asian subcontinents are the major importers of dry pea in the world. If you just see that in this graph, you can just identify India being the largest importer of dry pea in the world. In the 2001 to 2008 scenario, India has a tremendous growth. The GDP growth rate was 8%. This is the time where most of the trade and most of the industries in India has grown up. And this is the time we can see from the average import of in 2001, when the Indian average import was around 0.75 million tons, has gone up to 2008. It has gone up to 1.5 to 1.6 million tons. This is the time where that Indian industry has gone up, and from there onwards, that export has kept the momentum, and it has been in the average of 1.75, 1.8 million tons. And somewhere we are talking about close to about 2 million tons. China, from the 2008 year onwards, the import in China has really gone up because of the Mung bean production is down in the China, and the use of dry pea in the industry like vermicelli and other food products, where it has been used as a perfect substitutable to the green mung bean, and when it is costly, people are using dry pea. So that that scenario, we can see that Chinese import has also gone up. In the similar way, if you see that importing country shares, Indian import in last 5 years, 2009 to 2013, is somewhere around 1.56 million tons, which was in the previous, when we talk about the previous duration, 2001 to 2008, it is just 1 million tons. Similarly, in the China, that 0.18 million tons was like a total import during 1 to 8, and then in the year 2009 to 13, it has gone up to 0.67 million tons. Why dry pea in China? China's annual grain and feed production, pulses production in the total annual feed and grain production is less than 1%. And pulses are traditionally grown in marginal and rain-fed conditions where higher income crops like corn is not cultivated. China dry pea import is mainly driven by the high demand from the local vermicelli and starch processors. Domestic price of green gram plays important role in Chinese import of dry peas. We can see with this graph, whenever we have seen the green mung bean production is going up, the dry pea production has coming down, and it has happened on the vice versa. We can see that the trend of green mung bean production is going down, and we can see that dry pea import to the China is growing up. Similarly to the India, I think our last session has said very well that there's a high volatility in the chickpea production, and India is one of the largest consumer of chickpea in the world. In our domestic market, we prefer to consume chickpea to the large extent. When we see about the consumption size, that per capita consumption, I'll not go to very much depth, but you can see with the graph in the in the two duration scenario, the only chickpea and dry pea are the only two pulses which consumption has gone up, and other pulses consumption has gone down. So this is the chickpea and dry pea. Chickpea and dry pea, two are very important pulses which has to be consumed. And when we see that the scenario of dry pea in India, we have to look into the chickpea, because again, like previous session has already been said that if there is a decline in production or the production of chickpea, there is a directly relation with more import of dry pea in the world. So this is what, if we can see the down graph, we can identify, you can just see that chickpea production is coming down and the dry pea import is coming up. So this is a what relationship we have find it out. So this is what is my moderator do not want me to go into this price outlook scenario because we have the expert to get into this. And so this is what is my presentation. Thank you so much for it.
And thanks for sticking to the time allotted to you. Since the majority of his presentation was on dry peas, I think we will start off by devoting most of the time to peas, and then later, if we have time, we will go on to some of the other products mentioned in the panel headline. Let me start off by introducing all the members of the panel. From my left, it's Emin Akkan of ILTA Agribusiness. We have Nick Poutney of GrainCorp, Saurabh Bhartia of Glencore, Baosheng Zhang from Cofco, Shandong. We have Jeff Van Pevenage from Colombia Grain, and Ingrid Ronalb from Argentina. So these are the members of the panel, and I'll start off with first talking to Mr. Zhang. In the presentation, Mr. Zhang, it was mentioned that in 2013, China imported nearly 1 million tons. And every presentation, industry get-together in that year and the early part of the next year predicted that China would become a major importer, maybe even surpass India. But last year, China imported less than 600,000 tons. What exactly is happening in China?
First, I should say, last year, China's total import is about 780,000 metric tons, a little less than last year's. 1 year before, 2013, China imported a little over 1 million tons. That's the historic record of import peas, mainly from Canada. Canada takes about 94% of our total import. Then second is USA takes about 5%, 5. That's the general idea of our total import. And people are concerned how we use it. Actually, we started in 1994 just because of our domestic shortage of peas, because we have a lot also in China. We use that as a substitute of green mung beans, just for only and vermicelli industry. I think our vermicelli industry is the largest single end users, maybe I think in the world, because every year we produced about 250,000 tons just to making starch. Then we make it to vermicelli, and also in southern China. Vermicelli industry is located in North China, Shandong. Then in southern China, mainly for snack food. That's the general idea how we use it. Sir.
You did not mention the reason why the import declined from 1.1 million tons in 1 year to 700 or 600,000 tons the following year.
Okay, let me clarify this. In 2013, we imported a little over 1 million tons just because that year we have in vermicelli industry factory expanded. We opened a new factories and also the demand. But actually, in that year, the total import a little over. So the last year, we decreased some. I think this year, the total import will be a little more than last year. The demand this year is not so good, and also last year and this year, the major importers in China lost a lot because of the demand and also the price. As for expectation of next year, I think the total import will be more than this year, much more than this year. And we can expect soon over 1 million tons again. And in a long period, because our expanding and also the domestic market is expanding, especially when our living standard is better. We need more healthy food and also the snack food more. We can use that. So I think next year also the year of passes. Yesterday afternoon I talked about this a small question. I think maybe this time that the federation can do something. If we can do something, then we can supply more healthy food. For example, we can use more pulses, including peas, then we can import more, and people can more healthier. I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Jeff, you saw some of the figures that Vinay Soni had mentioned during his presentation, particularly projected some crop figures for Canada and the US. Are you in agreement with some of the figures that have been displayed today, and what are your thoughts for the new season coming ahead?
Looking at it today, basis price and returns to growers, it appears that North America, US and Canada will raise about 5.2 million metric tons of peas. In that, I think the United States will be about 1.2 million metric tons. Canada will be about 4 million metric tons this year. And I would agree that that kind of acreage is going to get seeded this year. So of that, you would look at yellow peas being somewhere around 400 or 4 million metric tons this year. Green peas taking up the rest of it.
This is a growth of about 20% from last year? Yes. Ingrid, we keep hearing about Argentina and what Argentina has been doing on the green peas market. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening on the pulse production scene in Argentina, particularly in the green peas area?
Sure. Argentina has been producing peas for a long time, but it has been known about it internationally just in the last 15 years. By the end of this millennium, the average production of Argentina used to be about 12,000 tons, and it has risen to a record of about 130,000 tons in 2012. Most of our production is of the green type, targeted to the canning industry, and it is grown during winter as a winter crop, and it has to compete with other crops like chickpeas, lentils, cereals like wheat, which is the most important winter crop in Argentina, oilseeds like canola and linseeds. So the comparative price of each of those crops will have a decisive influence in how many hectares of green peas will be sown each year.
Thank you. Saurabh, this year, India has really set the tone in this conference, and everybody has been talking about how much demand is likely to be in India for all kinds of pulses. How do you see the scene as far as yellow peas? It seems to be that yellow peas has been, let's say, the laggard in the whole pulse complex, and can the yellow pea demand cope with the 20% more production that Jeff is projecting in North America?
So before we get on to yellow pea scenario, I guess it's important that I brief a bit about the pulses scenario all over in total pulses in India this year. So we are facing a shortfall in pigeon pea crop by 500,000 tons. We are seeing a shortfall in black Matpe by 200 to 300,000 tons. Chickpea crop is short by, say, 1.3 to 1.5 million tons. Overall, these three pulses put together, India has a shortfall of 2 to 2.5 million tons. Now, if we draw our stocks from the carryover stocks and we import higher desi chickpeas this year from Australia, still I see India's consumption for pulses dropping by 1 million tons unless they import or consume more yellow peas. Now, yellow peas being the cheapest pulses, which is trading at 1/3 the price of pigeon peas, 1/3 the price of black Matpe, almost 1/3 the price, not 1/3 the price of red lentils, but even there is $500 difference between red lentils and yellow peas. And between chickpeas and yellow peas also the price difference is close to $300, $350 now. So I personally feel that the demand for yellow peas this year should be higher by at least 400 to 500,000 tons vis-a-vis last year. Now, I see this getting distributed over 2 Canadian crop years, which is because I see this demand between Indian crop year of March to Feb. So it will ideally impact 200,000 tons in old crop of Canada and 200 to 300,000 tons in new crop of Canada. Now, why LOP prices have been a laggard over last 6 months is primarily because India imported 900,000 tons of peas between October and December last year. Now, this was the total import of India in 2014, which India imported just in 3 months last year. So because of that, India had high carryover stocks. The stocks to use ratio increased all the way from 2% in last year, April, to 40% in December. So because of that, because of heavy stocks in India, the quality deterioration happening at ports, I guess the prices were not able to cope up with the rally in other pulses because there was always some or the other stockist who was out there in the market to sell his produce, his stocks. But now the stocks have come down to a level of 350,000 tons from 600,000 tons, which was in December. And India has not imported much yellow peas over last 2 to 3 months, and there is not much business on the books for next 3 months. So I see the values pretty much steady from where they are as of now for yellow peas in India, and maybe they will trend $10, $20 higher from where they are today in the next 2 to 3 months. But then if you go with with the number that Jeff is projecting for the new crop, the scenario 4 months from now is totally different. I see India again doing a front-end import of close to 800, 900,000 tons because of cheap yellow pea vis-a-vis other pulses. And again, I see prices going back to where they have started moving up from the lows in the last 1 month.
Thank you, Saurabh. We have talked about North America, we have talked about the demand in India. Over the last 2 months, there has been very little news emerging from Russia and Ukraine. And let me start by asking Emin his thoughts on what the new crop in Russia and Ukraine looks like, particularly in the light of some comments coming out of Russia that they will not be renewing their export taxes on wheat as of June, which means that the incentive for the farmer to plant more yellow peas may not be there anymore.
Thank you. Actually, Vijay, the lentil prices at this level has been just small motivation for the farmers to switch to lentils. The $1,000 of levels of green lentils made the farmers, oh, maybe we can try lentils. So I don't believe in that, especially in the wheat growing regions, that the farmers will easily switch to alternative or exotic crops like yellow peas. Still, it's historically in Soviet Union, the yellow peas were grown, but now in the last years, it has been quite exotic for the farmers. And it's not like Western farmers. It's still not a rotation crop for big farmers. It's for but once yellow peas takes its position as being a rotation crop, then we can be talking about a reliable supply and easy switch from other crops to yellow peas and other pulses. So for that reason, what I'm expecting in the new season in Black Sea is the acreage will probably remain the same. So in Ukraine, we are expecting to have 150, 180,000 hectares. And in Russia, it's between 900 to 1 million hectares of yellow peas. And don't forget, in these countries, the yellow peas are not grown as landslide. It's in particular regions. So the particular regions are growing yellow peas and pulses. That's my opinion is in Ukraine, if we take the average in Russia and Ukraine, if we take the yields average 2 tons per hectare, we are expecting to have around 2.4 million tons in total production.
Do you see some of the production going into China?
This will definitely be game changer. I think this will be a breakthrough event in the Black Sea pulses market, and this can attract the farmers. What happened in Ukraine this year? First time China allowed Ukrainian corn to be imported to China, and now China is the sexiest destination for Ukrainian farmers because they are getting extra return for their corn. So they are looking forward to China to include other products like wheat and maybe yellow peas. So if this happens, but I'm talking about Ukraine because the Chinese authorities approved only Ukraine for the quarantine issues. If the Ukrainian yellow peas started to be accepted to China, we can see, I expect a big shift to Black Sea yellow peas from China.
Nick, 10 to 15 years ago, Australia used to be a big player producing nearly 600,000 tons of dun peas. Over the last 4 or 5 years, the production has hardly been 350,000 tons, a bit of it going into India, some of it going into Bangladesh, maybe into China. What exactly is happening in Australia, and you see the trend continuing in the same way? Or if there is a price incentive, you could see Australia come back into the market?
The big crops were a long time ago, as you say, 10 to 15 years ago. The 5-year average is around 350,000 tonnes. We are restricted, I guess, for most of the peas are in the southern regions, which are the drier regions and the lower yields. And this year again, I think we're going to see tonnage sort of hovering in that 350,000 tonnes. So I don't see too much potential for growth. We only export maybe half of what we produce. It's one of the few pulses that we do put into our feed ration markets for the animal feed in Australia. So it drives a lot of the demand.
Saurabh, you were talking about France, and you were talking about some of the S&Ds in France. Over the last month or so, there have been repeated rumors floating around in the Indian market about French cargoes being traded into India and pretty competitive prices coming out of France. What are your thoughts on those?
We think that France is going to have a larger crop this year because of some incentive from their government towards protein crops. So we see the crop in France to increase by 40% this year, and a crop size of close to 850,000 tons. With the limited demand in the feed market for feed peas this year, we see the exportable surplus in France this year to be around 200 to 50,000 tons against 50, 60,000 tons what it was last year. So it is pretty much possible that we could see a couple of parcels from France hitting to India again after 4 or 5 years.
Of course, one of the things that all of us have to bear in mind is, most of this material has not even been planted. So we are all talking about crops that are going to be coming later on this year with probably many weather events that may occur in the interim. Jeff, one of the things that kept cropping up in all the panel discussions was North American logistics, and there was a feeling that bulk vessel logistics would be far easier than container logistics, and that this year logistics may not be such a big game changer as it was in the past. What are your thoughts, and what has happened in the intervening period to get better logistics from the system?
Vijay, over the course of the last 2 years, 2 years ago kind of was the epicenter of the railroad meltdowns. In the last 6 months, in the United States at least, we fought the container issues with the port union workers. But in the meantime, Burlington Northern spent about $11 billion upgrading the infrastructure in the United States and pushing more things towards bulk vessel shuttle loading in the country. And frankly, right now, the railroad's probably working better than some of us would like it to be working. If you've watched freight move from $5,000 per car tariffs to where now it's trading at about $250 per car under tariff, and there's too much going on. Corn exports off the west coast of the United States are dismal. Most things are moving through the Gulf. And I kind of foresee over the next year that logistics are going to be a lot smoother for us. We've got the labor unions in line, and that even affected the Canadian ports as the vessels were moving down the coast and getting stuck in LA and Long Beach, sitting there for 30 and 40 days to get loaded. Some of those things are going to get taken care of. I think in the next 30 to 45 days, you'll see some of the container movement get even better. The problem in the container side of things probably going to have more to do with the railroad, because the railroad doesn't like to move small movements, and that's going to be last priority as usual. And shuttle movements will move much quicker. So even from the United States, I foresee more movement of lentils and peas via bulk vessel. So it'll be a quicker movement and a more reliable movement.
Vinay referred to it in his presentation. $8 a bushel peas seem to be very good value for the farmer, and peas seem to be really at the top of the farmer's planting list. What do you see changing that?
You know, it's a currency thing. It's a bulk vessel freight thing. And if you look at everything right now, to the Canadian farmer, it's a great deal. And I think he's doing quite well, and he's been incentivized to grow more because of the strong U.S. dollar. For the U.S. grower, it doesn't look quite as rosy for him, but looking at wheat prices, durum prices, soybean prices, corn prices, he doesn't have as many options. I can tell you that bankers in the U.S. are much tighter on the farmer this year than he's ever been. And peas are a good cash crop for him, so they want to grow it. Already in Montana, where the largest pea producing state we have in the United States, we're roughly about 20 to 25% seeded on peas. So it's seeded early, and the decision's been made, and they're going to go in the ground. If you get in the triangle above Great Falls, where it's predominantly green pea being grown, we're about 60 to 70% seeded already. So we know it's going to go in the ground. And Montana has been drier this year. It's been drier than I've seen it in 4 or 5 years. I've driven around and seen the potholes that are usually filled at this point in time are empty this year. So it kind of means more acreage goes in the ground. Western North Dakota is the same way. But it's concerning that it's dry, but early seeded crops typically do pretty well for us. And the thought of the hot, dry July that people are kind of expecting in Canada and down into the northern tier of the United States will probably, the bloom season will probably miss a lot of that this year and probably do pretty well.
I'd like to open the floor for questions from members of the audience. We have another 10 or 15 minutes left, so we can take a few questions while we continue. So if there are any questions, please put up your hand and introduce yourself and keep the question brief. Saurabh, it looks as though, looking from the supply point of view, there are going to be good crops practically everywhere in the world. You're talking about India maybe importing 500,000 tons more over 2 crop years. Anything that can change that? Do you see a price level at which peas will become interesting compared to all the other pulses that are available, particularly if you keep in mind the kind of prices that buyers are paying for every other pulse? Pea seems to be, let's say, half the value.
See, Vijay, basically, if we see the prices are high right now for other pulses, and I would say they would continue to remain where they are for next 4 months at least, because India will be harvesting a new black Matpe crop in October. Your new crop from Canada will be coming in October, which is peas. Your pigeon pea crop will be harvested in December. Australian crop size will be decided by October. So I guess by October, market will know where these other pulses are heading towards from their recent highs, because I guess they have already reached the topish level, which is close to $1,100 for black Matpe, maybe $50 here or there, and same for pigeon peas. I feel, look at yellow peas. Yellow peas main substitute, yellow peas is the main substitute for chickpeas, and primarily in the gram flour industry. So to an extent, the gram flour industry can substitute chickpeas with yellow peas, but not other pulses like black Matpe or mung beans. They cannot substitute yellow peas by any which way. So the shortfall cannot be 100% substituted by yellow peas. Having said that, if these other pulses are to remain at $800 to $1,100 range, and with chickpea at $700 range, I think $300 to $325 yellow peas should pretty much hold its ground. At that price, I guess India would continue to consume and increase their consumption in order to fill the shortfall of other pulses.
Mr. Zhang, what do you say about China? Is there a level at which the Chinese demand will come into the market and the Chinese consumption will start to improve in yellow peas?
Yes, I think so. One thing is that the demand, generally speaking, from end of last year, the demand is less. So that's why our import also less. And it's also similar economic situation, I think, in China. But from the end of this year, and I expect better. And then next year we have some more production because the production is about, how to say that, about we have a new production of pea protein, but this year is not good, so it's slow down for this protein production. But next year we can do something, maybe the quality of protein can be better, then it will be expanding. And also we have to, how to say that, we have to find the domestic market. So far the pea protein mainly for export, but the demand, for example, in Europe is not so good this year. So next year we are trying and we are doing something to find a domestic market. By that way, I think the demand will be increasing.
Yes, please. You'll have to speak a bit louder. We cannot hear you here.
Okay, my name is Don Shepard. I'm with the Alberta Pulse Growers. There we go. For the last few years, we've had a substantial bonus on our green peas over yellow peas, and that seems to have kind of disappeared for now. What are your thoughts on green pea prices?
Saurabh, you want to take that?
There was bullish S&D of green peas over last 2 to 3 years in continuation. Because of that, I think green pea prices saw a rally from $400 all the way to $700. But this recent past 6 months, I think, again, like yellow peas, India has imported a lot of green peas, more than what they can consume. So we have, I guess, against 120,000 tons of usual green pea import, India already imported 150 to 170,000 tons of green peas, and they are lying and rotting in the warehouses in India. So because of that, I think that is the reason why you are seeing the premium of green peas over yellow peas going down, and I don't see green pea values improving a lot in next couple of months. And already there are new crop green pea values of $400, $410, $420 circulating in the market. So there is, I guess, limited room for the upside as well.
You know, in my opinion, I would say the spread between greens and yellows is going to disappear for at least this marketing year. I think there's too much production out there in it. Really making the value on it is kind of a wide spread because there's a big spread in the quality of green peas that are around, and you can find stuff trading over $600 still for high quality, and you can find $390 stuff trading on a CFR basis, just depending upon the quality. But the general green pea stocks in North America, I think, are going to be burdensome for the next year, and you'll probably see scenarios where yellow peas and green peas trade virtually the same.
I just add a few words about green peas in China. Normally, in China, we use it for snack food. During the last 2 years, the price of green peas too high, so we influenced our total import. And another reason is that the peanut 2 years ago is very expensive, so we imported more green peas. But last year, the price of peanut is priced down a lot. So people prefer to the local peanut. And this year, I think so far the price also down, but a problem for I think for all the sellers to be concerned that we pay more attention to the variety. We like the purity green peas. Sometimes we receive the delivery, it's just a mixture of different varieties. So it's a problem for us. And another problem is that we noticed more percentage of hard green peas. It's hard to use for our factories. So that's what I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you. There's one more question there.
Okay, my name is Pat Cadell with Cardell Seed out of Louisville, Kentucky. I'm inquiring about mung beans out of India and China. When does the crop come off and what kind of yield and what do they foresee this coming year?
Saurabh?
Honestly, it's difficult to put a number on mung bean crop in India because we have a crop getting harvested every 2 months in some part of the India or the other. But looking at the price scenario and looking with the recent moisture profile that India has received, I guess the next crop will be sown in Andhra and a few other regions of South. There the acreage would increase and hopefully against a 1 million ton crop of last year, we could see a 20% jump in mung bean production in India.
Do we have any further questions? Ingrid, you want to say something, please?
I have so short time to speak. I have to add to stress that Argentina has been known so far as a green pea, just as green pea producer and of smaller sizes. But in fact, the pea production in Argentina is evolving. There is a national pulse program to develop new varieties. And we are optimistic about having new options to offer in the near future. Not only small greens, but also big greens and also yellows.
I think we are nearing 4 o'clock, so I'm just going to close the session with a roundup of price ideas from the various panelists here. So can I start, Emin, with you? What do you think would be let's say, the sell price and the buy price in the market this year?
Yeah, before shooting, I would like to talk about a little bit the other factors as well. The first is don't forget the currencies are extremely volatile this year. Everywhere, at the origins, at the destinations, including euro dollar. So we need to watch the currencies very carefully, and we don't know where these currencies will carry us. Assuming currency is flat. The second thing is, in Black Sea, yellow peas are traded mainly in containers, and this year's situation in the market is the spread between the bulk freight and the container freight. This is harshest especially in Black Sea. Okay, it's the same from Canada to India, but the exporters in Black Sea suffering from the same phenomenon, which is while bulk freight is collapsing, the container freight is remaining the same, even moving up because of the decreasing imports of these Black Sea countries. So again, freight is another factor we need to, as usual, consider, and without assuming it's the same. And when I look at the picture at CNF values, I don't see a reason and fundamentals to go below 330. So this is my bottom. Above, I don't know, but 330 CNF is the support level I see.
Nick, you have any thoughts on the price, and maybe if you have any comments on desis as well, I'd like to hear them, because it is relevant to this panel, because obviously a lot of the yellow pea demand that's coming out in India as a result of the desi shortage.
I think the common theme from the Australians today has been that, first of all, the crop hasn't been planted and the conditions are extremely dry. What we've seen recently announced from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, the BOM, is that we are now at about a 70% likelihood for El Nino. So a drier than average season for the next couple of months. With that in mind, acreage is great, and we'll get a grip on that in the next couple of weeks, but really it's all about yield and how much rain we get. So the Australian desi crop you know, Pulse Australia put out a figure only about 10 days saying that it could be 500,000 hectares. Given the prices are fantastic at the moment for growers, it could be a little bit better than that. And then you could extrapolate that on average of 1.5 tonnes to the hectare, so call it a 750,000 tonne crop, but that could go higher with rain. I think what we're hearing being traded now is sort of 660, 670 CFR India. I wouldn't be surprised to see that fairly soon going to 725, 750 CFR India. Field peas today would work out equivalent to around $500 CFR to India. I assume that would move towards 550 fairly soon as we start to see the whole complex move a bit higher. So,
Thank you. Saurabh, what about you?
Assuming currencies remain where they are and current market of 360 to 365, as an Indian buyer, I would be a buyer all day long at 325 to 330 and a seller at 390 to $400.
Thank you. So Zhang, do you have any ideas on where you think it's a good buy for the Chinese consumer?
Okay, I'd like to say a few words. Chinese market are a little different with the international market, just like last year and until the present. Our domestic selling price is often much lower than the international market, so that's why many importers just influenced or just in some loss. But I think at the present price level, that's just like the supporting 330. I think maybe it's a good. I think maybe it's reasonable. So far, as for 340 and 350, there are already some conclusions. No matter for the current crop and even for new crop, especially for new crop, I think it will support our vermicelli industry and even for snack food. I think at this level, I think will be more conclusions. Thank you.
Well, I have to agree with Emin a little bit that a lot of the pricing on yellow peas CFR versus grower price has a lot to do with currency, has a lot to do with ocean freight, and you can't deny that some of the drop in price on the CFR basis over the last year has had to do with ocean freight. You can't deny that some of the drop in price doesn't have to do with ocean freight vessel rates dropping nearly 50% from where they were a year ago, as well as the currency levels. So the Canadian farmer has been plenty happy to sell the FOB values back in his farm versus the CFR levels. So I think that's going to have a big part in it. And if oil prices want to continue to, or want to turn around and move back up a little bit, you probably would see a bottom somewhere around where we're at today. I also think that stocks in the exporting countries are relatively low right now. Importing countries are relatively high, but you're going to see some of that start to reduce over the course of the next 4 to 5 months before we have new crops. So I tend to think that we're somewhere near the bottom of the market on the yellow peas, but upside's probably relatively little. Green peas, as again I said, it's all kind of about quality, what you want to buy and where it wants to go. No doubt we have enough green peas that we have to get rid of them into the Indian and Chinese markets at some of the cheaper values. So you'll probably continue to see green peas very sideways on some of the mediocre number 2 thresher run type qualities, trading somewhere in the low 400s. Number 2s trading in the 460, 470 range, and some of the high quality in the 550 range.
Ingrid, your thoughts on the green pea situation out of Argentina and what price range?
So Argentina is definitely not a price maker. We are the poorest friend in this table because our production is not so high. But from the farmer side, I will say that farmers will be happy for talking about green peas for canning, between 400 and 500 US dollars per ton FOB.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our session today. Let me close by thank the panelists for all the observations that they have made. And to close up, I would like to say that it seems that the market is interestingly poised, perhaps close to the lows, and most of the panelists seem to think that it is a decent enough buying opportunity. So, them think that the market is going to go skyrocketing at this stage. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thanks to our panelists for this great presentation on the Pea Outlook. And our thanks to AgriLink, the sponsor of the Pea panel. AgriLink, facilitating global agri-trade. Special thanks to Mr. Iyengar for moderating this panel so skillfully and with such great time management, sir. I congratulate you. And a second congratulations to Mr. Soni for a wonderful time management on your presentation. They were under a little pressure. We were running a little late, and they did a beautiful job and got to all the key points, so thank them.